Although most professionals don't want to admit it, there are some very significant ways in which depression and anxiety are absolutely going to be limiting your career. 5 in particular that I want to make sure that you're aware of. The first major one, honestly, is one where you will start to experience on a weekly basis that you're no longer feeling a sense of meaning in your work. And this is very often the telltale first sign that depression is on the horizon and is likely going to be exacerbated by your professional experience and what you're doing inside of your career right now. And it could also mean that the risk for anxiety showing up in particular work environments is also going to be at a greater likelihood. When you start to feel like there's no meaning in the work that you're doing, then really work starts to really feel like work, right? It becomes challenging to want to even get out of bed, go and make sure that you're conducting what you have to do, what you're assigned to do. It starts to feel something like you're going to dread, starts to feel like it's something that's heavy. And this is kind of the very first sign that something might need to change, that you might need to really dig down deep and figure out what is going on inside of the mindset that might be causing these feelings. And how can you create a real symmetry between where your career is and what are your core expectations of how your career should be that would make you feel fulfilled. So you don't want to be living a life where what you're spending a vast chunk of your daily time doing is something that you feel is not meaningful, right? That is a complete recipe for chronic stress, depression, and anxiety, and is going to impact your career greatly. I mean, think of it this way, even just from a standpoint of career advancement, which individual is more likely to succeed farther in the long term? Somebody who deeply feels a compelling sense of purpose in what they're doing every day, or somebody who feels like what they're doing does not amount to anything and is feeling a sense of meaninglessness, right? It's not too hard to figure out that the first person is going to have a higher sense of drive, persistence, that they're going to go the extra mile for the clients that they have to support, right? That they're going to be looked at first and foremost for opportunities of advancement and so forth. So it's something that you definitely want to be keeping in mind, not just from an internal emotional standpoint, but in terms of an external results-driven standpoint inside of your career. As soon as you're feeling a lack of meaning, it's a very big problem for you. The second major challenge depression and anxiety presents for you from a career standpoint is it's simply a constant distraction. Very often people will throw themselves further into their work to avoid taking a look at the depression or the anxiety that's kind of always in the constant background chatter of their mind. But you have to appreciate and understand that that is not a recipe for ongoing success. The people who try to go into their cave and simply dig themselves further and further into their work are kind of like trying to get out of depression and anxiety by running in quicksand. You're slipping a little bit further and further into the problem. You're adding more weight onto your shoulders, and you're creating a situation where eventually one of those straws is going to break the camel's back. So you don't want to have that experience either, where no matter what you're doing, it's always in the background distracting you from your work, or you feel a need to throw yourself into your work simply to, keep your consciousness from being gravitated back towards those thoughts of depression and anxiety. The third major impediment, the depression and anxiety is going to create for you is quite simply your quality of work is going to be negligible. If you are constantly distracted by what's going on in your personal life or why you're feeling depressed or those thoughts of anxiety racing through your head, constant thoughts going on, you're going to have a very difficult time producing your best work. It's just simply not going to happen. As I share with a lot of people, any decision made from a place of fear or apprehension is not the right decision, meaning it's going to cloud your judgment. It's going to cloud your decision making. You're not going to take the risks that you need to take. You're not going to be clear-headed. You're not going to have those somewhat, confrontational but very important and professional conversations with people that you need to make sure that the standards are being honored inside of your company ecosystem. There's going to be a lot of challenges there. So it quite simply is going to cause you to show up differently. It's going to cause you to show up with less than your ultimate set of emotional resources to handle what is necessary inside of your work, okay? So you don't want to have that happen. Now what this produces is number 4. Number 4 meaning the fourth major limitation is opportunities for advancement you are likely to be overlooked for. It's not necessarily a fun thing to think about, but it does happen. Employers know when you are bringing a state of either lack of purpose, lack of meaning, depression, or anxiety into the work environment. And it may be something they have sympathy for you for, maybe something they'd love to see improve for you, but ultimately they are responsible for producing an end result that they obviously have to be accountable to for the company stakeholders. And so what that means for you is that if you are bringing in less than your best self, right, to handle the work and do all those things we just described, you're simply just not going to be performing at the level you know you really could be or should be. And that means that you're just going to get overlooked for opportunities that you would have otherwise been a shoo-in for. And that brings us finally to number 5, which is that honestly, employment or re-employment may be at jeopardy. And what I mean by this is, eventually, if you are consistently bringing a state of anxiety into the workplace, demonstrating an inability to handle particular tasks, you're either going to feel a sense of guilt and shame for being there, such that you end up quitting, or you're going to get into an environment where you are going to get let go because, again, they're responsible for producing a certain set of results. So the solution here is not to avoid the depression or the anxiety. It's not to pretend it's not there. It's not to, try to self-medicate or go with mere coping mechanisms. But in order to avoid these 5 major impediments to advancing your career, you've actually got to step up. You've got to get a new set of tools. You got to get a proven process. It's time to dig deep, figure out what it's going to take to get rid of this thing, get the help that you need, and actually make it happen. So please comment below. What do you think number 6 would be? What's the 6th major challenge that would happen for your career or maybe even your income dealing with these challenges? And, as always, please reach out at any point. Happy to provide any assistance or support I possibly can for you. Be well and take care until next time.